In 1987, Geoff Travis and a handful of the original staff handed over control of Rough Trade to a management trust. It meant the introduction of differential pay and departmental structures, a whole new way of working.
It was just a very difficult transition, you know, and it was a hard transition for Geoff, you know. I mean, he was turning over something that he started to other people who, in his mind, probably had no vested interest in music. You know, we didn't care less about the music, which was as far removed from what Rough Trade was, you know, when it first started.
But far from making Rough Trade a leaner outfit, the new structure was bureaucratic and unwieldy, and inflamed the ongoing rift between distribution and the record label.
There's a power struggle, really. And I think my mistake was that I was not interested in the power struggle. And I was very quickly marginalised on the board, so that anything I said, no one took very seriously, and distribution went its own way.
By that time, there was war between distribution and the record company. You couldn't guarantee you're always going to have a hit record, so sometimes you're having a bad season, right? But distribution's always there, increasing in power, increasing in power, increasing in power, and then then Rough Trade gets to be just another label which is served by the distribution company that has started.
Panic on the streets of London, panic on the streets of Birmingham, I wonder to myself.
War was also brewing on another front. Despite a #1 album and 6 top 20 singles by 1986, the Smiths' relationship with Rough Trade was becoming increasingly antagonistic.
Studio time was always at a minimum. For me, that was a bit of a problem. Some records didn't arrive at some places on time occasionally. There was some issue with that Joke Isn't Funny Anymore, where I think there weren't enough records pressed. And the band had no manager, so the two principal members of the group are dealing with the label. And it's like any relationship, you know, you spend a lot of time together and there's a lot of issues and a lot of things at stake. So, like, things get blown out of proportion. I mean, Rough Trade weren't exactly blameless, but it wasn't like a catalogue of catastrophe or anything like that.
Burn down the disco, hang the rest of DJ, because the music that they can't...
I mean, Morrissey always used to say things like, we're never on the radio. And of course, they were on the radio. They did have a series of hit records, but I think they just felt they should have more. And I mean, that's understandable but irrational. I mean, Smiths were not making, you know, anodyne, pretty pop records for 14-year-old girls. Therefore, they're not going to sell as many records as Duran Duran. It's just a fact of life. You have to get used to that, Morrissey.
Sweetness, sweetness, I was only joking when I said by rights you should be bludgeoned in your head.
During the recording of the third album, The Queen Is Dead, in 1986, the Smiths tried to sign to EMI. Yet again, Rough Trade looked set to lose its biggest act, but this time it had the protection of a contract.
We were stupid. You know, we had a couple of people around us who gave us incorrect and bad advice. You know, and this lawyer saying, well, go and sign to someone else and shopping for a deal, and we didn't really have the rights to do that. And Rough Trade said, hang on a minute, you know, you owe us a couple more albums. So it caused this sort of like standoff, and then we were told, this record that you're working on is going to be injuncted. This lawyer told me that. And that was a bit of a buzz killer. You know, when you're trying to make a record, like, guess what? It's not going to come out. Right.
Because they didn't have a manager, they lacked any kind of voice that gave them some semblance of reality. I think that's what destroyed them.
We didn't have a calming, organising presence. And that led to a lot of chaos and a lot of drama and a lot of neurosis, and ultimately the band's demise. But all of that drama An intensity went into the music. You can hear it in the music.
The Queen is Dead was released on Rough Trade, but after the next record, the Smiths were free to leave. Strange Ways Here We Come was to be their last release on Rough Trade, but the band was falling apart, and it would be their last album, full stop.
In the end, they signed to EMI, and they never gave EMI a record.
I am the sun and the air.
The Smiths' departure was demoralizing, but income from their sales continued to roll in long after they'd gone, and the future was far from bleak.